Hi friends, and welcome back to Wordly Wise Book 5, Lesson 10. Today it's time for Day 6. In today's lesson, we will answer the questions of Midterm Test 1. So make sure that you have Midterm Test 1 from Book 5 with you. This test consists of a passage and 12 questions. We will start by reading the passage, but first, write your name. Write the date on which you write this test, today's date. Now, let's read the instruction. Read the passage, choose the best answer for each sentence or question about a bold word, then fill in the circle next to your answer. So these words used in this passage are from lesson 1 to 10. So some from lesson 1, some from lesson 2, some from lesson 5, all the lessons from 1 to 10. The early days of air travel. How do you travel by air? In a plane, right? In an airplane, yes. When passenger air travel was introduced to Europe in the 1920s, it was at first rough and uncomfortable. The planes were noisy, unheated, and able to hold only a few people. However, flying from England to France was much quicker than crossing the English Channel by boat. A plane could depart from London and arrive in Paris in a mere 3 hours. It was no wonder the number of Europeans traveling by plane soared during this decade. Airlines did all they could to make flying attractive and to convince the public that air travel was a superior form of transportation. They emphasized, of course, the speed of planes. They also stressed that flying was safe. They tried many things to lure customers. Some airlines even called attention to some celebrated people who calmly traveled by air. Over the next 20 years, substantial changes took place in air travel. The planes became quieter and more comfortable. Meals were served on the flights. In America, the first air hostesses, a trained nurse, was hired in 1930. Traveling in an American DC-3 was the height of luxury in the 1930s. DC-3 airplanes carried no more than 14 passengers. Sleeping platforms folded down from a wall, and curtains provided privacy as the passengers slept. In the morning, they were roused by a crew member bringing breakfast foods and hot beverages on a tray. By 1932, the duration of a cross-country flight with several stops had been reduced to 24 hours. Wow. Air travel has taken great steps forward since its early days. After all, our gigantic planes cross the continent in no more than 6 hours. However, some passengers who have become accustomed to being crammed in narrow seats for the entire afternoon cannot help but wonder if every change has been for the better. So some passengers have small seats, so they might wonder, are all the changes for the better? Because now planes can take 350 people, where back then in 1930s it could only take 14 people. Wow. Great. So now that we've read the passage, let's read and answer these questions. Number 1. Read the sentence from the passage. When passenger air travel was introduced to Europe in the 1920s, it was at first rough and uncomfortable. What does introduced mean in this passage? A. Make known by name. B. Brought into use. C. Called to someone's attention. D. Welcomed as a guest speaker. Think carefully. What does introduced mean in this passage? B. Brought into use. Number 2. Read this sentence from the passage. A plane could depart from London and arrive in Paris in a mere 3 hours. A synonym for depart is, now a synonym is a word with a similar meaning. Depart, is it A, arrive, B, arise, C, leave, D, escalate. A synonym for depart is C, leave. Number 3. Read these words from the passage. The number of Europeans traveling by plane soared during this decade. In this passage, soared means A. Suddenly became greater. B. Flew like a bird. C. Coasted. D. Began to descend. In this passage, soared means what? A. Suddenly became greater. Great. Number 4. Read these words from the passage. Air travel was a superior form of transportation. What is another word for superior? A. Speedy. B. Useful. C. Reasonable. D. Excellent. Air travel was a superior form of transportation. What is another word for superior? D. Excellent. That's a synonym. Excellent. Next, number 5. Read this sentence from the passage. They tried many things to lure customers. What is a synonym for lure? Synonym is a word with the same or similar meaning. A. Bait. B. Trick. C. Attract. D. Comfort. They tried many things to lure customers. What is a synonym for lure as it is used in this passage? C. Attract. Number 6. Read these words from the passage. Some airlines even called attention to some celebrated people. What is a synonym for celebrated as it is used here? A. Rich. B. Famous. C. Fearless. D. Remarkable. Some airlines even called attention to some celebrated people. What is a synonym for celebrated? It is B. Famous. Number 7. Read this sentence from the passage. Over the next 20 years, substantial changes took place in air travel. What does substantial mean in this passage? A. Very heavy. B. Sudden. C. Expensive. D. Many. Over the next 20 years, substantial changes took place in air travel. What does substantial mean in this passage? D. Many. Many changes. Number 8. Read these words from the passage. They were rused by a crew member. What is a synonym for rused? A. Awakened. B. Fed. C. Excited. D. Called. They were rused by a crew member. What is a synonym for rused? It is A. Awakened. To awaken them is to ruse them. Number 9. Read these words from the passage. Bringing breakfast foods and hot beverages. A synonym for beverages is A. Towels. B. Water. C. Drinks. D. Cereals. Bringing breakfast foods and hot beverages. A synonym for beverages is C. Drinks. Hot beverages, tea and coffee. Number 10. Read these words from the passage. The duration of a cross-country flight. In this passage, duration means A. The speed of the flight. B. The length of the flight. C. The distance of the flight. D. The number of people on the flight. The duration of a cross-country flight. In this passage, duration means B. The length of the flight, how long it takes. Number 11. Read this sentence from the passage. After all, our gigantic planes cross the continent in no more than 6 hours. What is a synonym for gigantic? A. Huge. B. Noisy. C. Comfortable. D. Modern. What is a synonym for gigantic? A. Huge. Very big. Number 12. Read these words from the passage. Some passengers who have become accustomed to being cramped in narrow seats. What does this mean? Cramped in narrow seats. So some passengers who have become accustomed to being cramped in narrow seats. What does this mean? A. Some passengers have directed to narrow seats, are directed to narrow seats. B. Some passengers are hostile to narrow seats. C. Some passengers are assigned to narrow seats. D. Some passengers are used to sitting in narrow seats. So what does this mean? Some passengers who have become accustomed to being cramped in narrow seats. D. Some passengers are used to sitting in narrow seats. And that's it, the end of the test. Well done. Friends, today we read this passage and we answered these 12 questions. Make sure that you got the correct ones. Remember to join me next for midterm test 2. After this, we'll continue with book 5 and we'll start with lesson 11. Great friends, I want you to have a wonderful day and remember to join me next for midterm test 2. Bring along midterm test 2. Great. Bye for now.